Hello, my name is Brant. I am talking to you tonight on the 21st day of August 2020, and I titled my talk called One World Government. This is what most people, well, some people know what's going on, but very few still don't understand why all this is taking place. I can remember we talked about this in international studies, international affairs, when I was in political science classes in college in the early 80s. And we argue, that is, most of the students argue, we had actually a debate, and I was on the losing side in certain ways because I knew that basically all this was, even 40 years ago, it was a plan. And it's been a plan ever since World War II. In fact, it's been even before then. Those who rule the world have always sought to conquer the world and to make us even far more slaves than we are. The issue of why it is not, it's been an implication of what I call piece by piece. So it's a piecemeal type of battle. And how that worked is simply as getting us off the land here in the United States and elsewhere, what I would call the industrial world. And how did that happen? Well, it happened here in America after the war between the states. Once the Confederates lost to the Yankees, this brought about centralized government immensely. And this created the industrialists, the tycoons, if you want to call them that, who could make money and use people's labor to produce products. And this is what they call the Industrial Revolution. But what took place was simply is that we were, as individuals, most of the families, had family farms. And so we were able to take care of ourselves. We didn't have to have anyone to take care of us. During the Great Depression, people survived, mainly because the country was still agriculturally enough, that is, had enough farming, small farms, that people grew their own food and had a cow, a pig, and some chickens, and they survived. All they really needed was a few things, and they used corn to make cornmeal, and all kinds of things that they were self-sufficient. So in reality, and what I'm talking about, it took us off the land and made us more dependent upon those who rule. And I can get into a lot of things. The United States was never free, folks. It never was free. It was a setup the whole long time ago. If you look at Lysander Spooner and others, you will be aware that basically this is a sham. And they brought in education within 30 or 40 years after our so-called victory over the British, brought that in. So what I'm talking about here is a massive plan. And what's happening now is they're using fear. And fear is simply this, folks. This is how it works. It simply is, they use fear in order for you to no longer to react in a way that's what I call rational. Instead, you react or you're paralyzed. You don't do anything. So what happens is you become fearful. You either make an irrational movement or irrational thought, thinking process, and it leads to a bad day for you, or you actually do nothing. And so you do nothing in the fear this might not work and this is not such and such. And so this is what this is all about. This is not on a small scale here. This is on a large scale. Most countries are involved here. There are some African countries that were not involved in this earlier, but I think that's all changed. The leaders have been either disposed of, and dealt with. So this is the game that's going on. It's a way, and there are many people in the United States. What's happening here? We have somebody named Trump, and everybody thinks that he's a good old boy, that he's going to help us. In reality, he's selling us the farm, and he's selling us down the river. That's as simple as it is. He has done what I call, people don't see this, it's so clear if you think about it politically. You've used the media and a political party to push it. In other words, you keep programming, and people think, oh, well, Trump's a nice guy, he's a good guy. But all Trump has done in 4 years is created a lot of executive orders, and he's also basically got us in this trade issues, which the United States was already in a terrible mess before this. And this is also bringing about the greater downfall quicker than it would have actually taken place with us trading with China. But you have to understand how this is done. The United States in the early 70s had a huge blow, and one was simply as we got off the gold standard. And what I mean by that simply is that the dollar was pegged to the gold. There was gold here. It was actually supported what I call paper money. But that all changed under Nixon's administration, and he chose to renege that. And at that time, I think gold was $35 an ounce. Now, listen to me now. Gold is now over $2,000 an ounce. It's never been that high in recent times, ever. Period. If you go back to the Great Depression, or the times of Franklin Roosevelt, when he actually confiscated the gold from people, and they paid them, I'm thinking it was $20 or $25 an ounce. And then it was $20 an ounce. And then they sold it to the Federal Reserve, which is not federal and it's not reserve, for $35. So they made a huge profit on it, on each ounce of silver. So this has all been going on. It's not like they suddenly come in the game and suddenly just put pieces together. No. They've been working on this for hundreds and hundreds of years. And they're very skillful at what they're doing and how they manipulate certain things. The markets, the controls, the countries was one thing that started out. So they were separate countries, and then we had supposedly in our country what we call a republic. And then, as you see, in the early 1900s, it's no longer called a republic, but it's called a democracy. Well, if you just really do a word search on democracy, and you look at city-states of Greece, you will find out simply as all of them failed because it's mob rule. That's what democracy is mob rule. And mob rule means simply a crowd. For lack of a better illustration, is that it gets a crowd up and they will do anything and everything. And they will overthrow governments. They will destroy city businesses, whatever. You've seen this earlier this year, actually. And so, and with the media in there, having their cameras on, and a lot of this stuff sometimes simply is a choreograph. It's just choreograph. There are those who play parts. They're actors themselves. They play their such and such. Who knows what goes on? They go out, and then there's a stand down based a lot of times simply of the police. And there is a stand down with the police. Simply is that in the past, when things of this nature came in, the police got involved, especially with the civil rights deal, unrest in the Vietnam War in the mid-'60s, late 60s. It was different. But you don't see the police no longer as active because it's become politically correct. And political correctness simply is the ending of your free speech. That's what that's what's been going on probably since the late 80s, early 90s when this has all been propagated. So this has all been done on a process to bring down not only the United States, which is the key player here. If they bring down the United States, then it will have, it's a manipulative, not manipulative, but it will have a rolling down of others, because it just simply will cause other countries to fall apart too. So Trump's involved, immensely involved. And those of you that think he is, you're a nut. Both sides, two sides, very clear, left and right. So there's no compromise. Get it? You see, no one's working together to do anything. Both sides are saying, I'm right and you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And nothing is being done for the public's welfare. Nothing's being done to say, hey, such and such. Then when all this is going on now, we're spending trillions upon trillions of deficit, all in the last 6 months here. That is completely bananas. I mean, it's just crazy what's taking place. And so this whole thing with the virus is to promote fear. And with this, people begin fearful and they clutch, and they guess what they do? Every time they do this, they give their freedom away. They give it away. Took place in 2001. The Twin Towers took place. But if anybody would have had a brain, can see it simply is, those two buildings were taken down by demolition. Okay? No planes took those towers down. No way. They were structurally intact. They were into the ground. They were built to withstand earthquakes and withstand plane crashes if it happened to come in. It was choreographed again with the media, showing these planes coming in such and such at the time as though it's something happening. And that all people see, some people don't even see everything. You saw a plane, all they saw was an explosion. It's all people as this government has completely come apart. A lot of it started back in 1848, and what that meant is many of the communists came to America after the failure of the revolutions there in Europe. They failed, and Lincoln allowed them to come into our country. That is, President Abraham Lincoln allowed them to come into this country. And so they were here, and then they got positions in government, and they're like little moles. And eventually they rose to power, and then simply is they could exercise that power if they're the secretary of such and such, state, commerce, treasurer, whatever you want to call it. Then they control everybody else. It's a form of hierarchy system. So that's how the United States has been gradually, just little by little, is being gradually destroyed from within. It's not a country on the outside is causing this. It is within our own government who are doing this. It's been going on. And there have been, if you think about it, the presidents that have been assassinated have wanted to deal with the issue of currency or money to deal with them. Now, the only one that survived anything was Andrew Jackson when he nuffed out the second charter for the Bank of the United States. Don't quote me on that, but it was to reiterate it into law. I think it had a 25-year extension or whatever, and he said, no, I'm not going to sign it. I think it was the third time. If people would look into Alexander Hamilton, you would find out where a lot of the instigation of destroying this country from within is there. And the bankers are the ones who have the enormous power. It's not the presidents. It's not the military. It's the bankers. And as the country becomes more and more in debt, just like me and you folks, very simple, the more in debt you are, the less control you have. That's the simple way it works. Do you know the United States has not had any significant debt until basically started a little bit with the Carter administration, but guess who really started the debts going? Yeah, you heard me. Ronald Reagan was the one who began to do that. He began to build the military. So all you conservatives out there who think Ronald Reagan's a great guy, Ronald Reagan wasn't a great guy neither. And he got us involved in issues with Iran and also involved in Nicaragua. That basically we just didn't need to be involved in those areas. And I'm sure there was a deal that Carter's administration did not do. But you got to understand, all these presidents, all of them, you can go back far. Most of them, presidents in the last 150 years do not even write their own speeches. Someone else writes it for them. The last president to do that was Woodrow Wilson. He wrote his own speeches. After him, no one else has done it. So it means this simply is that the president is not, I don't know if you can say he's not as intelligent, or that simply he either doesn't have the time, or either he's not capable. So they have speechwriters. They don't write themselves. In fact, a lot of times the president, to me, is just a figurehead. But he does have power, yes. So nothing's really taking place under the Trump administration. And people think things are great, such and such, and they're not great. And what's occurring now is the gradual transformation of trying to bring this all to basically get laws in the books to eventually that more and more of us are going to be more and more dependent on the government. That's the whole idea, is to do this and to bring about world economic collapse. That's the whole plan. And when these countries collapse economically, they're going to take down other countries, because such and such, it's like a string holding up another string. And one collapses or pulls on it, it pulls the rest like a balloon. And suddenly there's more and more weight, and eventually that balloon will come down and crash. And that's what the whole idea is. So then they can come in and say, okay, give us this thing. Give us your whole country, your assets, and this is what we'll do for you. You see, a lot of the land out west is owned by the federal government, which is none of their business. They shouldn't own any land, but they own it. But I can guarantee you that some of the land is actually been given away either to the Chinese or definitely to the United Nations. And the United Nations simply is a body of people coming together, and it's based upon one nation having one vote. So a country like Libya, or Liberia, I should say, has a vote. Meanwhile, the United States has one vote too. So you can see how these little small countries can eventually outrule the bigger countries, the larger countries. There are 5 or 6, I think there are 5 countries, as well as I recollect. There may be 6 now, but there were 5, as far as I recollect, that have the power of veto, and that is the United States, Russia, Britain, France, and I think China is the other one. So they have that power. So what am I saying to you? What's the important part here? Well, for those of us who are seeking the truth and wanting to do the right thing, we're going to have to take care of each other. We're going to have to take care of each other. That's how it's going to work. And we're not many. We're the few. And so we have an opportunity, if we do these things, that we can help others. That's the way I feel about it. Doesn't hurt to help others, no matter what. People may not understand that, but it's just an opportunity you have to show love. And love is greater than anything else in the world. Truth is important, yes. And I always look at it on two sides. If you have love but you don't have truth, you tend to spoil somebody. The other way, if you have truth and no love, you tend to burden somebody. That is, you're belligerent upon them because you believe that you have the truth, and so you'll hit them over the head in order for them to change their mind. So it's belligerent. The other way is simply spoiling them by love. So they have to be balanced. That's the way I look at it. So I think this clears it up for now. This is just something I wanted to share tonight. It's getting late, but I wanted to share this because I felt it's important to understand that their goal is to keep people in fear. And also one other thing is, what we're looking at is a rule, what we call technocracy. And technocracy is the next step. Democracy, technocracy. They realize simply is that the word communism is people are going to fight that, but people don't know anything about technocracy. And I have a book here by Patrick Wood, Technocracy Writing, and this book was written, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer ago. A brilliant book, just a brilliant book. I don't agree with everything he says, especially he's looking at a Christian perspective. I'm not. But it has a wealth of knowledge in it. If you can get the book, I challenge you to read it. It's well worth it. So anyway, I appreciate your time, and you have a great evening. Take care.